I'm Ed Sehl, PGA golf teaching professional from Tegakay, South Carolina. I want to go over with you the important things that I've found in 60 years of playing and teaching golf. These are some things that if I were beginning golf today, I would really want to focus on, know about, to improve my golf game. I think the first thing we have to be aware of is swing plane. What kind of plane are you swinging the golf club on? And Jim Hardy out of Texas is probably one of the better explanations for swing plane with his treatise on one plane, two plane. Swing plane is kind of like how you swing the club, the path that the club travels on. If you're a Jim Hardy fan and you're thinking about swinging maybe a little bit more around yourself, sort of like Matt Kuchar does, that would be what we would call more of a horizontal or shallow plane. You might want to swing more upright, sort of like a Tom Watson, and that would be a swing plane that you'd want to consider. But that would be something that I would really want to know about. What's best for me? Should I be more upright? Should I be a little shallower or flatter? Swing plane is one of those key things that I found in my 60 years of being a teacher and player is important. Second thing I think you need to be aware of is what we call the low point in the swing. What's the low point of the arc? The low point would be, as we swing this, at what point is the very bottom or the lowest point that this arc is making. And that's important because if you're hitting a driver, and this is the new Cleveland Classic, if you're hitting a driver, you want that low point to be somewhat behind the ball so that the driver starts up as you hit into it. And that's more a function of where you position the ball. You don't have to technically change how you swing the club. But low point would be something important. If I'm going to use a wedge, for example, the low point of the arc is going to be in front of the ball. So if the ball is here, I'm going to hit the ball first, and then my low point is be on the target side of that. So the difference would be with your driver, you're hitting up on it because the ball is actually positioned more forward in your stance. You're not changing your stance. With a wedge, you're hitting down on it. Again, a function of where you position the ball and understanding what low point is all about. Third thing I think would be important, again, if I were starting over and trying to learn the great game of golf, would be how the club face works. What does this club face do? Does it rotate? Does it stay consistent to the arc or the path? How does this function? And I think A.J. Bonar out of California gives you an excellent explanation for the club face rotating. Now that's sort of a taboo, if you will, because folks don't like to have a rotating club face that's manipulated with the hands. And the only thing I can say to that is the club face is always closing. It's always going from toe up to square to toe down. And so we know that there's a tremendous force and energy that's created by the club face rotating, so you want to capitalize on that. It wasn't a problem for Ben Hogan. He said that he opened the face in his Life magazine article in 1955 or 56, so that when he did release the club, it couldn't close fast enough to create a hook. And he would be considered one of the greatest ball strikers of all time. So if for Ben Hogan the face opening and closing is not a problem, then I don't think that we should worry about it. I know a lot of folks try to keep it square to the path, try to keep the face from moving, and just let the body rotation take care of that. Figure out what's best for you, but get an understanding of what this face is doing. We know from TrackMan, we know from Flight Scope, we know from some of the other technological advantages that we have, that the face of the club can override the path of the club. So get very familiar with how you make the face work to your advantage. I'm not advocating one technique over another. I'm simply saying to you, you need to have a good understanding for what the face is doing. That's the third thing. The fourth thing is that we've got to figure out a way to compress the golf ball. I know, and those of you that are Homer Kelly fans will understand the the handshake where the right wrist is bent back, all in the sense that the golf swing, and I think Lynn Blake does this, his treatise on this is as good as anybody's. The golf swing is more about pressure, putting pressure against the shaft. This would be the fault of the common mistake that we all start out perhaps with, and that is releasing that pressure or flipping the club. So being able to put pressure against the shaft would be one of the critical things that we need to be aware of. I know Jimmy Ballard used to speak of being able to torque the shaft, feel as if when you started down you could almost break the shaft, you were putting so much pressure against it. And that's why I think some of your teachers today will talk about how you hold that pressure all the way to the finish. That's an important thing. So being able to put pressure against the shaft. Finally, I think for me, if I were going to start the game of golf over again, I would want to know about short game. How do these wedges work? For most beginners, we want to try to figure out a way to hit down on the ball and take advantage of the leading edge. That's because the mistake we make is that we tend to flip it. So learn how to lead with this leading edge. Then as you get better, ironically, you forget about that, and now you start figuring out a way to play the bounce. Bounce is this flange that's on the bottom of the club. This is a 54-degree Cleveland 588, and it's got a pretty good amount of bounce, so that when you get here now and swing, instead of having the leading edge dig into the ground, this bounce will help you float across the ground so that you don't get a real big gouge in that. So learn how short game works. I think Tom Kite proved years ago that with your short game, the introduction of multiple wedges, now you have 64-degree wedges. Phil Mickelson is an expert at that. So learn how the short game works, how you're able to, first of all, have forward shaft lean to get that position with your short game, and then learn how to go the other direction and be able to have the shaft more neutral at impact so that you can take advantage of the flange. Finally, I would talk about how you putt. Being able to be a good putter, that's what we see as distinguishing most of the tournaments today. The winners being able to take and roll the ball. And this is something that you learn to have a pre-shot routine, a technique, something that enables you to step up to the putt and have confidence in your ability to either lag it up close enough if it's way off so that you can two-putt, or to knock in a three-footer. So being able to putt would be something that I would focus on. Interestingly, we're watching, as I'm videoing this weekend, the US Open being played at Olympic in San Francisco. You've had a 14-year-old play in the tournament and do quite well. You've got a 17-year-old that's within striking distance of winning the tournament. You have experts, you've got seasoned veterans, you've got a man called the Junk Man. His swing is so varied. So my point in that is there's a whole variety of ways to play this great game of golf. Don't get hooked on, I'm going to imitate and be one way or another. Again, keep in mind, if a 14-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 53-year-old, if you have veterans like Ernie Els, Graham McDowell, if you have Tiger Woods in the mix, if you've got Jim Furyk, if you've got Jason Duffner, all of these people go about it in a different way. So keep in mind that you have some uniqueness, but those would be the things that if I were starting over, I'd want to learn about this great game of golf. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Ed Sehl from Tega Cay, South Carolina.